situations, you give them a winning lane and they're ahead early, they can definitely transfer those.
And it comes back to that style that we talked about before, that how Zoom and Yagao would be very crucial towards either a 1-3-1 or the 1-4 that we highlighted over Zoom. But that game, no need. We got the full 5-on-5, and those fights, like I said, were pristine. So Zoom on the cannon comes through the Jace lane absolutely fine. Great. Let's fight. Zoom wins.
He loses 2 turret platings, but it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. He's able to find someone like Lissandra, and his flashing was so good. I think that was a key fight that really started the end of the game. Once W was locked out of their own red side, they had no Baron hopes to go for whatsoever, and just looking at the potential of the cannon to potentially flash over into the inhibitor wall, you could see W were slowly giving up ground themselves. They couldn't really stand up to it. So I love what JD Gaming are drafting for themselves. It's team fight focus, it's initiation focus, and that's their style. They're staying true to it, and they're rewarded.
Sets up well with Flawless if we talk about how the mosh pit, as it were, for the team fights for JDG. And I mean, this was one of them. The dive from Flawless was so pristine towards that execution.
Yeah,
again.
they played it so well. The initial heal was taken away by Liu Mao, and then let's watch them in the team fight. It's basically the same combination. Double globals going in at the same time, and Paranoia and Hero's entrance, and you can see Rakan just stunning everyone up for the punishment to be fully dealt out. And that was just so beautiful to watch. That's the synergy and the prowess of the front line of JD Gaming. JD Gaming is a team that doesn't rely on their backline so much as their front line getting them into the fights and taking out the enemy carries. We saw this match between WE and JD Gaming as really being about between the diving potential of JD Gaming's front line and the protecting potential of WE supporting cast.
So what are you looking for in game number 2? Because in series, in playoffs, especially in a best of 5, a lot of things change. This series, I expect a lot of changes because WE have gone for the red side again. So this is going to be like, all right, you have side selection, you have one more after this. How do you risk blue, excuse me? How do you change your composition up now that, yes, you're on the blue side?
So there's something I really want to see is now W is on the blue side. What they could do is first draft a strong jungler. Rexar or Lissandra are probably going to go in the first round. That's how they always draft on the blue side. And then with the second and third pick, you could do a surprise Xayah and Rakan.
True.
Now, Rakan is a champion that Missing doesn't play a lot, but he has shown potential on it. So they could take that away from Lumal. And at the same time, one of the best well-known Xayahs is Mystic. Mystic actually started the trend of playing Xayah in the LPL. So they could have a very strong dominant lane that scales very well into the late game. He's a tremendous Xayah player this this season as well, and it would be a great takeaway. I think that's the best draft scenario for them, but we have to see here because, you know, JD Gaming might read it through and just instantly snatch up the Rakan.
And you look at Post, he does not look happy whatsoever, and WE is a unit looking a little bit shaken there by game number 1. Now, we briefly mentioned how WE would transition into this blue side, but going a little bit further than that, WE, their very first game, just to put it plain and simple, was not iconic of the WE we know from Spring. However, there's still theory behind it, but maybe into JDG, who just come in flying, that there needs to be a transition, as you mentioned, back to the old style.
Yeah, I think what they're seeing right now is playing hard tempo style against an experienced jungle like Flawless with an experienced squad on how to play the game. They have a very strong philosophy on what they want to do with the roaming pieces. It's going to be hard to just crack them as a tempo game. It's going to be very hard to just break open and isolate the lanes individually and then win the game like that. You have to remember, JD Gaming, they almost don't have a laning phase to speak of. Their players are roaming around the map so often that there's very little distinction between a laning phase game and a mid phase game. Now, what W tried to do was isolate all 3 lanes at the same time, win all 3 lanes at the same time, but once one of those fell down, they couldn't stop the overspilling coming in from JD Gaming. So what I think they will do is that they will look towards having more late game utility, having more of a say if their early game doesn't go well, and truth be honest, it can go badly very easily when you're going up against someone like Zoom and Yagao. You might as well have a late game insurance plan.
Even Flawless, who was having a very good game 1 as well on the Nocturne, and how that spilled over the jungle pressure and other lanes were enabled off of it. Yagao, you know, didn't really have to do much. I mean, he
Just look at
ulted
that.
in. Yeah.
This is the roam style. So we saw
Game
Rakan
one, baby.
having 100% kill participation. Yagao had 93.8%. So essentially what they're doing is that they're so well coordinated, they can always join in the action at the same time. That's synergy that's been building up from the JD Gaming roster since 2018, and that's their play style. You can't really break these members apart. That's the way they play. They're a roaming hit squad. We like to call them the mosh pit.
Yeah.
They like to get down and dirty, have all 5 members mixed up, and brawl it out with you. So if W cannot take that style head on, then they need to keep some of their later game options available.
Much more dangerous as a mosh pit, though. Let's not forget, and keep it, I'll keep it civil. A mosh pit can go bad. So although I like how JDG have erupted in this game, number 1, there is always a reoccurring theme that JDG will go back to.
Please.
Okay.
Oh.
We'll go back to their original style.
He's not missing yet. He's still in action.
Missing has had such a good laning phase, so I'd say in the past couple of weeks.
Yes.
I think Missing is the biggest surprise to me in that game, because going on the Brom, it wasn't the Thresh that we know and love. It wasn't the Rakan that we could potentially see. It was not that successful. It just didn't look great.
Yeah, and I actually totally agree with what Raz was talking about missing, is that he actually had a very good laning phase, but W just could not keep it on the starting role consistently enough. They still had a Zero coming in and out.
Yep.
They had another support coming in and out, and Missing just didn't get the playtime. Once he did get it in this split, he's been doing much better in lane. Now W just going through the drafts again. They're taking out the Zoe and the Galio, Yagao's best champions on the patch, and right now W actually have a chance to go for the draft that we were talking about. Xayah Rakan is still open, and it's a combination that's so deadly in the early game, so good in the late game too.
You know what you're running into with Imp already picking up the Kai'Sa 2 games in a row, the difference being that the flex of the Rise, which both Yagao and Zoom play, is there. WE, the transition, we know. Mystic and Missing playing hyper scaling 80 carries with of course only one, but a good support. What's left up and available? One of these going to be played. We know it. Mystic has been the only one to venture in with the Jinx and look great here in the LPL.
Yeah, they haven't won a game on the Jinx, but
Okay.
he has looked great. So this time around, he's saying, look, I'm not going to make the same mistakes again. He can pick the Rakan, it's open, but I'm not going to sit on my hands and not press flash or heal this time.
Okay.
I'm okay, guys. Please believe in me.
I want to see the revisiting here from Mystic. Let's go. Round number 2. Seeing
Yeah.
the Jarvan there as well, and what you mentioned at the start, while Lumao does pick up Rakan,
He's always going to pick Rakan if it's open.
is that WA, getting the first pick Lissandra here for Shie, getting the Jarvan in the second rotation seems to be a very good start.
Yeah, the Jarvan, we have seen Jarvan really show up in the LPL. Like, LPL is the best region for Jarvan. People love the pick. It's very easy to execute. It has great team fight potential, great zoning potential. But my question is, the Jarvan just, in terms of the solo lane, actually drops to a lot of other junglers. Kindred is one of the big champions that a lot of people think as a hard counter to the Jarvan. You can dodge out on most of his damage so easily. So I'm not really sure what W are trying to do here. They have a great engage combo, but the fact is that JD Gaming now have very good high chances of succeeding in the bot lane and also playing this hunter-killer game with Flawless. He's the most well-known solo jungle in the LPL.
Absolutely.
And you're actually leaving the door open for him to go on something like the Kindred, and just having a winning support and having a winning jungle combination seems so dangerous to hand over to JD Gaming.
You've already taken away his Nocturne. We spoke of the Kindred. That'll be banned out lastly by WE. So options are limited here for JDG's jungle. What comes up next? Because a lot of the time we've gone for the passive, the Sejuani, the Rek'Sai, of course, which is still actually open.
Ooh. Okay, Skarner's definitely an interesting one. They do have the Realm Warp, so we've actually seen this being done by RNG. They will Realm Warp a Skarner into your backline.
Oh, yeah.
Which is so annoying to deal with. And the Rakan comes in from the front, or it could go either ways. So strong engage options once more. Flawless, they're not actually trying to push his early game advantages. Instead, they're going to rely on the Skarner. And Skarner, with his recent buffs, we've seen a cropping up of full AD Skarners back in the meta.
We really have. Flaw's picking up that Skarner for JDG. I like how it situates the composition, but still for WE, you got to go back to what's tried and tested. You also deny Zoom away from the Yorick by post picking it up himself.
All right, so we see the Braum being hoovered as well. So I like WE, you know, they have the confidence of saying that game 1 was a fluke. We can go with the exact same game 2 bot lane composition and still come out ahead. And I would agree with them. Like, objectively, that was not a game 1 level 1 kill that should have happened on their side.
Yep.
So I like that they're holding their ground on that front and then picking up more control options in the front line. In game 1, they did not have a front line whatsoever. Rek'Sai Jace, it's not the front line that can actually allow Mystic to deal damage. This time around, they do have a much more steady front line, and they still have the tempo elements. They still have the winning lane elements as well. So this is a much more complete draft coming in from WE.
Feels like a much more WE draft entirely. JDG cementing their own style, but it's going to be the Vladimir as to which lane. You expect to see maybe Vladimir top there for Zoom, which he's done in the past.
This is an interesting one because Vladimir traditionally has been pushing quite hard by the Yorick. So he's actually just picking this to deal with Mystic specifically. They're saying, you know what, Kennan's not available here. We still not well, Kennan's still available, but we want a little bit more burst damage to actually take down the Vayne, and we think it's going to be enough with all the extra initiation tools that we have. Vladimir could go in, dump his Hemo Plague, his entire rotation, and a very easy follow-up. A breeze coming in from Imp should finish the life of Mystic.
We already mentioned the backline access that is available with Yigao's Realm Warp, and by the way, is one of Yigao's best champions on the... No, sorry.
It's his worst, actually.
Absolute worst. I went one way, I went the wrong way. 6 games on Rise. Yigao has never won in the regular split on Rise. 0% win rate, 1.5 KDA after 6 games. So this is saying something here for JDG. You already have the momentum off game 1. Let's get those stat lines up.
Yeah, and he has a lot of confidence. He's just looking at the tools that they can get towards Mystic. They're saying, you know, W, you drafted a much better front line this time. You have the Jarvan and the Braum in place, but we're going to bypass that. We're going to send someone to assassinate Mystic this time. You're going to have to avoid so many incoming threats. The Rakan's going to be having a target on your head. The Skarner can just come in and snatch you. And you can roam more Vladimir in your backline. It's so difficult to play around all of these possible initiations. And this is what JD Gaming do best. They overwhelm you with initiation.
You're going to do that so easily here with these compositions. Flawless jumps on a new jungler here in the series as well. So does Bei Sheng. But with Rek'Sai available, they've opted in for this strategy. JDG already pulled off what seemed like a miracle winning game 1 due to expectations. But in Hangzhou, in LGD's home arena, we will look on as JDG try to make the miracle climb here in LPL Spring Playoffs. Did we return the old manager? Because that is loud. Did we bring him back from Rogue Warriors and he's just like, gotta support my boys?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. Well, however, seeing Rogue Warriors not making playoffs, he might come.
He sounds very similar, Clement.
He does.
Yeah, I'm gonna investigate.
I don't think the teams can share managers out.
No, but I mean, you can share. All he has to do is scream. He doesn't have to become the manager.
Yeah, that is true. I wish W brought their drums coming in from Xi'an. Those always get the crowd.
They are heavy. They are big drums. Surprise. Flawless taking Predator here on the Skarner now. Fun fact for you is that it seems like Skarner is the only Predator jungler left.
Yeah, Olaf is still there. A lot of Conqueror Olaf.
A lot of Conqueror Olaf.
Hecarim can take both as well. Now we are seeing an interesting level 1 developing from W. They do have the Braum advantage, so at least they're going to make sure where the jungle start is from Flawless.
Yep. Just poking in there, we'll find the vision, but nothing more. Flawless picking up the blue buff, and Bei Sheng a tiny bit behind here, but it's more about the vision earlier on. That bottom side river again from JDG prioritized, while WE secure and make sure that the transition towards Scuttle and the top side itself cannot be repeated.
And just taking a look at the starts that both sides are going for, it does look like Bei Sheng's going to be headed towards the bot side. So if JD Gaming want that same kill, they better do it now, or Jarvan's going to be coming in and swooping that away. And in terms of the other lanes, we do expect the York and the Lissandra to at least get the shove and the priority throughout the majority of the early game.
Like I said before, expectations are nothing in this series anymore. Flawless going to be moving up towards his Krugs. Now, blue to red, straight to this camp up here. Flawless should be getting close to hitting that level 3 mark. top side of the map at an even standpoint, but watered out. So Flawless wants access earlier on into this top lane to play around Zoom, as we discussed in our setup for today's series. Then it's going to have to be a swift game.
Yep, and we just saw the Colonel flashing his predictions right there. 57% into WE's side. He does like the Vayne, very high win rate. Does like the York as well.
Okay. I don't know how right Colonel is, though, because he's let me down in the past. We're just going again. Lumao, only level 2, just jumps onto missing. Yeah, really good trades here to the support of JDG.
And I want to point out that that wasn't even a full plasma stack proc. So it just goes to show you, a lot of people still forget how much early damage Rakan actually gets. It actually comes mainly from his base stats. And those are the things people almost never read. You read the skills and you just forget about how much damage he actually just does by auto-attacking.
You're also seeing the buff to Hero's entrance that has... sorry, Grand entrance. I always get him confused. That Rakan just has so much more damage. I'm curious to see if we go for the W max as we're back to that, it seems like, or maybe the Gleaming Quill to get more sustain in this lane.
And we're actually even seeing the Guardians coming out, so not going for the maximum amount of early game damage. There was a phase where we saw a lot of Rakans going for the Airy just for the potential to get a kill here.
Oh, hang on a minute. Post doesn't have enough mana, but Zoom will have to use the Sangrein pull. Rough lane here, even finds the grasp on the way out. Not what you want as a Vladimir.
Yeah, and this is not uncommon in this lane. We do see the Yoriks being able to control the lane the most of the time, so I'm actually very surprised that Zoom went here.
This is more than control. That's a flash out. Yorick is some of their most played champions, Zoom especially. Getting traded out like that is a rough start for the top laner of JDG.
It's super immaculate by Pose. He found both of those morning mists spot on, had them with the full gold count, and was able to take Zoom down to below 1 flash. Now, Vladimir is a champion that he's great late game, but if he falls down like this early game, we could see a lot of dives coming in.
Yep, doesn't really have enough sustain to hold himself in this lane as well. Look at where Flawless is. The reactionary game begins here for the Skarner. Spire's going to give him that movement speed, but that deep ward from Post. Props again that WE have been quite prominent on the warding themselves in this early game.
And the jungle route has just been better from Baisong as well. He's already up 2 camps. This is something that we see a lot from Flawless, is that he doesn't necessarily optimize his own path for farming. He does it much more for ganking. And he does actually commonly fall behind. So a lot of the times if JD Gaming don't get an early game, it almost feels like Flawless doesn't get much going.
He might start something quickly though. Beishang level 4 as well. Flawless running on in, loses the Crystal Spire, so he's going to lose the attack speed. The window has closed and Beishang now takes the fight with Conqueror ready, and the crab, no, what is that? It's a plant. Flawless gets half health.
Yeah, I do feel like Flawless actually overthought that engage.
Oh, Lumao.
That was so on the razor's
It got
edge.
slower, but Lumao got faster.
Yeah, that was actually a really good engage right there, because there was no hard CC from the bot lane of W that could instantly lock him down. So just talking about Flawless in the topside trade, if he gets in close range with the Jarvan, he should be able to win out that trade. He overthought it, shot out his Impale, got cut, and Zoom's going to get solo.
Zoom doesn't have the flash. Solo kill. The post by the ghouls. His wife didn't even have to watch that one happen.
Damn, goodbye, Zoom. That's the best top laner selected in 2018 by the players and coaches and the media, but watch out, rookie Pose actually taking over that spot, just handling him, manhandling him easily in lane.
JDG getting forced out in multiple lanes. The top lane now a big issue with a 20 CS advantage. Mid lane starting getting a push there from Xie, and Beishang says, hey, we got one lane that is not finding the same response, and it's a bot side where he's heading now.
You have to remember that Zoom selected this matchup for himself to go into. This was the last pick Vladimir, and he was like, you know what? I'm going to walk into this matchup.
After game 1, you'd be so confident taking this matchup. You'd say, well, Post wasn't really a factor, but this game he definitely is, and Yagao about to find out about it. There's a flash from Xie, Glacier Path in as well. 3 members stacked on in. Maiden joins in, and Yagao gives it over to Beishang. Maiden leaves the turret. It's over. WE have made sure so.
And who really expects the Yorick roam? Like, I don't think Yagao was thinking about that as well. Great coordination between the team members. You could see the lane was pushing towards WE's side. And that CC chain lined up perfectly. They got the EQ combo still down, and Pose got his morning mist and all the goals damaged as well.
Some really clean early games is what I'm seeing here from both JDG and WE. Game 2 now, WE's turn to shine, it seems like. Leads everywhere across the map, apart from this bottom lane where Imp is once again in a good position. But this time, Mystic not giving over early resources, not opening up a lane for JDG to snowball through, has given WE more power towards the style that we talked about.
Yeah, and maybe I was wrong. WE feel like they can handle the Temple game quite well. Like, their solo laners are really, really strong at this point, and the bot lane is still doing fine. I feel like Luma has been out-trading in a lot of these fights. Yep. That's why we see a small CS lead coming in favor for Imp. But otherwise, there's just nothing going for JD Gaming. They do have the Skarner, almost about to hit 6, but he's been playing in full vision of WE.
So for someone like Flawless, it feels like the Skarner, now level 6, or almost level 6 rather, is getting denied away. Post is 2 levels higher than him. The red buff going to be contested, and Flawless cannot manage to do this. Looking for a steal, but Post isn't even hitting it. He's going for Flawless.
Flawless does have Smite here, so if he's willing to step up, he should still be able to secure it. But look at where she is hiding on the map right now. She is already at the Raptors ramp, so he's going to be able to come into the fight before Yagal can actually do anything. And I think this is a big reason why JD Gaming have such a bad record on Rise.
Very true.
It's a champion that does need to stack up your tier early, and JD Gaming rely on early roaming so much from their mid lane. They do great on champions like the Galio, but when you put something like the Rise that needs to wait its turn, they just don't have the same momentum early game.
Yagal's Corki, Yagal's LeBlanc, all capable of that factor, but when you think about the Rise, you think roaming. Just not the case here, as Beishang just uses peer pressure to tell Flawless to get. And Flawless has to scurry back. He left his red buff, fearing Post coming down. He has no topside pressure. The bottom side as well is starting to push in. Flawless has little to nowhere to go. He's already falling behind in CS, but most of all, JDG are behind 2,000 gold by this stellar early game of WE.
It's all just been the turret plating and the laning CS. Now, I think the Skarner should still be looking for something bot lane. Now, Beishang's doing a very good job in trying to keep the Skarner out of this side of the map. He's deciding to fully focus on the bot lane rather than trading sides as he did in game 1. I think that's the correct move right here. As long as Beishang makes sure that Lumal and Skarner can't find a fight, they should be fine.
Can you start about now? Because Lumal and Imp already disengaged with the Glacier Pusher comes down. They lock on down him. He can't move. They pull out the quickness, but Lumal has done enough for timing's sake. And Flawless comes back in, Cataclysm down. Yagal's in the middle of it though. Locked down with no mana, nowhere to go, and no hope as WE are reversing what JDG did to them in game 1. 5-0 clean from World Elite.
And that was such a good Cataclysm. Great call by Beishang right there. He puts it down and then he stops Flawless from actually getting the engage. So you saw the Skarner. He was turning his head, just shaking his head right there, not being able to get out on any of the carries and drag them back into the tower range. And also a great start from missing right there. Does get the initial knockup, so that's a very long knockup. Lumal tries to come in with the flash to equalize things, keep people under tower. Yagal comes in, but he's just a perfect Cataclysm target at that point. Even stops Flawless from helping, and it goes all the way for WE.
Flawless look like a helpless puppy there, right behind the fight. This Skarner, you see the implication that's happened, that WE have pulled themselves, well, they pulled themselves something. Post is just walking into it. 3 levels of difference, by the way. Post has already been stomping this lane, 10 CS ahead. The jungle continues. Mid is 25 CS up. Mystic is now in a good place as well with 2 kills. You fail to see, much like game 1, where JDG can find entrance again. I didn't think that JDG vs WE would be about the early games when we have 2 late game can be scrappy team fighting teams.
Yeah, and I didn't think JD Gaming would put themselves in a position saying, you know what, laning phase doesn't matter. We have the late game, boys. Like, I think this is such a weird read on their own strengths, because JD Gaming is, if you're talking about late game team fights, I don't think anyone would vote JD Gaming over WE.
No, definitely not. You would say, though, if it's a cluster, that JDG would still have some kind of priority in the mid to late game team fight. But you're right, for JDG, you know, the early game can be quite oppressive to a degree. Flawless walk away. The crowd's not happy about that one.
This was spotted out for sure. You can see all the pings going down.
Very good deep vision here from WE. Flawless has no anthem. Beishang going to get a free Rift Herald.
Yep. Baesong finally having a great read this game. You can see the question mark pings going down and how far W are actually backing off. Now W has actually been known to flash the emotes when they know the enemy jungler is there, so I want to see if they do it this time.
Not this time. Here comes Predator though. Had they disrespected long enough, Glacier Vision comes down. Hang on. The turnaround Mystic is into the final hour. The Vayne hitting again hard like a truck into the fray. Missing headbutts it for the last one as the Winter's Bite has sucked up the concussive blows. Mystic and missing. 2v3 me. The Scorpion doesn't have the Spire, doesn't have the movement speed, and doesn't have the hope here in game 2.
Oh my god, that was such a monstrous play coming
we
from
just continue again with the Cataclysm down onto Yigao. Xie ults himself, the Frozen Tomb, locks on down, leaves the key. Yigao has no escape, and WE 9-0 in game 2. They get a turret, they get more gold, and they get the respect back in this series. I
think the losing team might not even find a kill in the first 2 games. It was 16-0 in game 1, and now look at the score line. 9-0 in WE's favor. Such a great play. Flawless wasted so much time in that back line, and you know they were well prepared. Great use of missing, just catching 2 people right there, putting on the concussive blow stacks, and great finish from Mystic. Like the Killer Instinct was already used from Imp, they're able to chase him down through a minion wave, and with so many abilities burned but nothing actually secured, they're able to pick up the triple.
You can see the Impale was saved just to save Imp's life, but it was not the case in the end. You have a 4-0-2 Vayne now walking around. A 2v3 stylistically going over to WE. And this is the Mystic and Missing that we were waiting for in playoffs, that WE were going to rely on. Although this game, it's not really the case. They're just adding fuel to the fire.
8,000 gold advantage before the 15-minute mark. Yeah. Wow, this has been a really fast series. This is a blazing fast series. I guess that was the reason they weren't waving their emotes back then. They didn't want to give it away how powerful they actually were.
Yep. You have yourself a 2v3. You can now push up in this wave. You know that the whole of JDG are probably going to respond here, but what do they give up in other lanes? Xie is coming down. Yigao level 9.
And this is a fight where JD Gaming are trying to hedge their bets. They're 0-6 on the Rise, but they are 8-1 on the Kai'Sa. So they do have experience of putting themselves behind.
Oh, that's a Realm Warp. Hang on, Missing is not near Mystic. The ult comes out again, slows down the Rise. Rakan can't find his sweet spot. Missing just jumps back. There's so much used. Zoom teleports down as well. They need this turret. They need to find something because the Maiden of the Mist is knocking up the top side.
And that does feel like a mistake for Flawless to not actually drag Missing back. He didn't have a flash back then, but they were a little bit scared that the rest of the map would collapse on their position.
Oh, the flash is gone. Here comes the Hemathlane. Finally a play as the Killer Instinct in from him. The Hemathlane going to drop down. Mystic is getting burned down. First kill goes over as a big shutdown for Xie coming in. Cataclysm next to the turret as well. Mystic finds his death wish. And with 2 kills, WE need to survive under turret Zoom, tanking up the duration as Baesong here takes the Killer Instinct. They find the Impale, but JDG are so darn low. There's nothing Xie can do about it. Everyone from JDG survives. Zoom now underneath turret, goes into the Sanguine pool. Yigao dies, Lumao dies.
Can the Thrall find someone?
Cannot find Zoom, he walks away. WE, they lose a lot in the bottom line.
4 for 2 trade and mountains of shutdown gold going over the way to JD Gaming. Now that was a situation where W could have backed up, but they thought, wait a minute, JD Gaming actually expended a lot right here, staying underneath their tower, and this is the surprise that JD Gaming can throw in your face. They're always willing to go to a round 2, to a round 3 in the start of the team fights. The first try did not work. They expended so much, the teleports, the skills to get in there, but they were willing to wait around for round 2 and just look at this tower tanking. A lot of low blinking health bars, but they're able to clean up on the entire roster of WE.
Juggling of aggro from JDG was the best part about that fight. So many more should have died. And the fact that it was only 2 in the end for JDG when they're this far behind, yeah, I feel it, I get you. JDG was so far behind, why wouldn't you be cheering? 8k gold lead still for WE, and they're still getting turrets, don't get me wrong. It's a WE favored game, but JDG, they make the move that we were expecting to see 5 minutes ago.
Nobody forces things like JD Gaming forces things. They go in so hard, but I have to point out that after that play, the gold advantage still went over to WE.
That's true.
Now, Pose actually found a lot of turret gold on the top side, and he's been rolling in dough at this point. 40 CS up across Zoom. So, you know, we might have a couple of JDG fans in the stadium cheering and celebrating what looked like a successful play, but just look at that top lane goal difference. It has been equalized quite well during that stretch.
Never thought I'd be talking about Zoom losing in his solo lane against someone like Post. Rookie versus successful veteran, we'll say here domestically, although there hasn't been the title we could have seen there from last year from JDG. For someone like Post, we knew the Yorick was going to be a contested pick here in this series. Post looks so darn good. He's so stable. That's exactly what WE need in this game too.
And it's actually quite surprising how they're using a different top laner this time around. WE 695 used to be. I get messed up with
957.
957.
Okay.
There we go. There we go. We have like too many triple-digit area code players in the league right now. 957 used to be their captain, and he played a much more like a frontline style. And with Pose, we've actually seen a lot more of these split push type of elements come in. He's really good on the Jace, on the gangplank, and he's been able to find a footing and win his lanes quite frequently, even when he's being counterpicked, even when he has to show his hand on the blue side first.
When he picks these very late game scaling split pushes or team fighters, you know that WE are moving back towards their old element, and what happened with 957 is you knew him for the Kled, but the more we watch Post, the more we're knowing him for this Yorick, which is a menace in the side lane. Post even rejoins some of the fights. He even gets involved as WE are trying to do now against Flawless, who is level 9 against Beishang's 11 at 18 minutes.
Yeah, and this is a game where Flawless is basically useless throughout the rest of the fight. He's
is
not tanky enough to walk up. WE still have this massive 4-1 that they need to deal with, and I'm not even sure if Flawless and Zoom go in, can they actually take down Pose? That's a question that I don't think they have an answer for.
This Yorick is unstoppable. 30 CS in the top lane. I mentioned before how underleveled the Skarner was, but look at the CS difference in jungle. That should never happen. Oof. And Post is stealing away blue buffs. The mid lane's down 60 CS. The bottom lane is the only one that's even, but Mystic has the kill advantage and the item advantage at the moment. So many good news stories here for WE. The WE that we were expecting to see coming into this series. They have options available for them as well at 19 minutes, because Baron's spawning with Post in the side lane. The threatening 1-4 that is now going to turn into a 2-3 is going to start really pacing up.
Yeah, both of these teams have been so good at snowballing one lanes. This time around, WE got the top lane rolling from Pose, his heroics getting that solo kill on Zoom. They took over the entire top side. They then went toward the bottom side when the Jarvan already had a CS and experience lead. And I just felt like JD Gaming gave up way too much priority in the draft to go for something that could shut down Mystic. The truth is that if you go for this much late game scaling, your early game's not going to look too good, and it doesn't really matter how far ahead, like how much burst damage you can throw at him when Mystic has been untouched throughout most of this.
It's the development of the mini meta so far, in the sense that JDG are relying on that same game 1 instinct that we can draft a composition that'll fight these late game fights and that'll play towards our style so far in this series. And just underestimating WE, and their draft is just so simple. It's so easy to execute here, and Post is just showing you what.
I think the main thing we have to take away with is either teams have the laners and the junglers to play through a very strong lane. If one lane has a definitive edge, you expect that lane to completely snowball, and either side can really do that. So I feel like the drafts are going to be more focused onto lane priority and onto those counter picks from the red side. I feel like JD Gaming had a wrong read on where they wanted to be in terms of the matchup. They chose for late game scaling, late game burst potential onto Mystic, but early game priority is still where they're favored.
Wasn't as much favoritism shown towards that top lane of Zoom, and Flaw's now paying for it. He's being caught out again. Has to flash defensively once more. They're in a choke zone for WE. They find themselves knocked up. Here comes Zoom into the middle of the frame, finds the stop the Cataclysm into the back line as well. WE escaping here, but look at Mystic. He just front lines into Zoom. The flash is there from Post. Hammers down. WE clean up again. JDG might fight one response onto missing, but it is not enough.
This is the front line that WE were looking for in game 1. It took so much to actually even dead Pose. He was standing there. There was a triple man knockup coming in from Liu Mao. Imp was free firing, but the front line still held for WE. Mystic was able to come in and just clean away the stragglers from JD Gaming.
And now he's got no jungler there from Flawless as he respawns at his very low level. He's 3 behind. Luamau himself is not in a good position. They sit in front of Baron, but this is going to be a crucial mistake. JDG bitten off way too much. 5 versus 3. I don't think so, Luamau. Mystic's coming for you. Even Yagao knows that he's in a wrong position. Crit to death. Mystic gets yet another double, and WE are getting given their lunch money.
14,000 gold now is the lead for WE. They've been crushing all of these team fights. I actually thought that JD Gaming had a chance at the start of the fight. Look at that triple man knockup from Luamau. Also with the Hemo Plague layered on top. But the Unbreakable of the stand behind me was so good right there, taking away all that projectile damage from the team, and their front line was able to hold. Mystic just came in on time, and the gold advantage just shut down JD Gaming so hard.
Too much for them to deal with, isn't it? There's almost 3 items on each and every carry, but you give Mystic, he's already got his third, he's got the Mercurial Scimitar, so Flawless cannot get through this annoying Vayne.
No, not at all. So that was a question I was thinking about when they selected the starter. I felt like they should have tried and pick something that could deal with Baseon a little bit better.
We know that the Rek'Sai was still open again if Flawless wanted to transition on it. He got taken away from his Nocturne, which is his speciality, but as you're mentioning, as Shie, he just has an instinct, the Luden's proc.
He's been to a couple international. He knows what Fnatic does.
Flawless is so squishy. Here comes the Cataclysm again, half health. Beisheng will just pop the stone plate into the fray again. They lock down each and every member who comes their way. Give another double, this time to the jungler.
That was picture perfect from Shie. He gets the Ring of Frost on Imp as well. Instantly
Can they kill
takes him down.
Post? They'll find the knock-up. Sterex Gage is here, Post at half health, so he will eventually die. Goes golden, wasting time, but WE are just looking to end the game.
Yeah, they're definitely going to take at least a triple inhibitor from this. There's nothing that JD Gaming can do, and it's a question if they can even get back into their base and defend.
They're just hunting for kills at this point, and as you would, demoralize JDG. Yagao can't stand up to Mystic, who has been on a tear in game number 2. Beisheng walks up to the Nexus turret. No fear, no worries. And no Cataclysm apparently as well.
And this looks to be a quiet end to what it was a surprising game 1. WE now sitting on almost a 20,000 gold lead.
Definitely a noisy start to game number 2 for WE. Bringing it back in the series as they start clawing at him. He'll get taken down quickly. Mystic even finds another. That's like his 4th double here in game number 2. And while they keep Zoom busy, WE fight back, equalizing in the series.
The hunter becomes the hunted in game 2. Flawless was tracked throughout that game. He could not find a single successful gank. And then Beisheng was sitting on such a massive advantage. His top lane pose was rolling as well. And WE winning across the board just steamrolls JD Gaming. Now I have to say, this is what we expected out of this series.
Of course.
WE were looking so sharp down the stretch, and this is how I think they're going to continue to play throughout games 3 to 5.
They had side selection for game 1 and game 2. Remember, they still have one more, and we talked about how they're going to use it. I know that's going to be an ongoing discussion, but in this game number 2, their blue side was to be feared, especially that draft, and the way JDG gave over so many dominant picks.
Yeah, it has to be questioned right here. JD Gaming thought that they could play the outscaling game with WE, which I don't blame them for. You don't look at WE and go like, oh they're going to kill you at 20 minutes.
After game 1, you're filled with confidence, right?
Yeah, you're like, we should be fine, you know? Our lanes are going to lose, but we're not going to lose the game off of that. We can hang on and go into the mid-game, and that did not happen.
No, Yagao's Realm Warps and providing that mobility that they desperately needed, but we need to see them come back on the Zoe, on the LeBlanc there for Yagao, because this is not working. By the way, 7th loss. Never has he won on the Rise. And I'm sorry, but for JDG, like, throw it in the bin, because Rise for Yagao is not a good champion.
Yeah, I think early game priority is still very important, especially with how hard that W is pushing the tempo angle in terms of these drafts. You see a lot of these Lissandros coming out. I think she is one of Shia's best champions. And if he can find that edge, he's suddenly all over the map. It's very hard to contain him. He's snowballing his lanes that are already winning by the draft to begin with. So it's almost an imperative for JD Gaming to at least be able to match the influence for Shia early on. I think they need early game pressure from Yagao. That's for sure. They cannot throw him on the Rise. They cannot throw Zoom on the Vladimir.
Let's add one. Let's add one. Let's add Flawless on something like an early game pick. Like what the Nocturne was able to achieve in that first game was not replicated. Beisheng out-jungled, out-rotated, Post as well. Those early bits of vision control and the red buff that was delayed by about 1,000 years.
Yeah, well, what I don't like about Skarner is I feel like a lot of times in this particular matchup, he's going to become a win more option. Like if your bot lane's already winning, you have someone engaging for you, then sure, you're just going with the Impale, and you're going to extend that lockdown duration, but that's not really what you need to win the games. That's if you're already rolling, then Skarner is going to be a great pick for you. But what I want to see from him is, first of all, champions that can maybe isolate Beishang. The Lee Sin, the Olaf are champions that Flawless traditionally has had a very good win rate on, and are things that I feel like he still has a mechanical edge over a rookie like Beishang. So he could definitely try and push that advantage there. It'll also help out his mid lane.
That was a highlight for JDG coming into the series, that they did have the experience, in that if anyone was kind of going to take it based off performance in previous matchups, although you still have Xie and Mystic who are performing out of their right mind, it seems, after game 2.
Yeah, definitely. So we still have to see how the game selection goes. I do feel like with W now finding their footing, they will go over one game, give one game of side selection over to JD Gaming. And I think JD Gaming, with their track record, they do prefer the red side a lot more. So this time around, with the red side, with the potential solo lane counter picks, I don't want to see them pick for scaling. I hope that they've learned their lesson in game 2.
I mean, blue side looks great in this series. 100% win rate so far. One apiece. This series has already spiced up, and we didn't even expect it to. That's LPL for you, and that's game 3. Coming up next.
现在是什么？现在是卢锡安这个人生巅峰的一波，4件套出尽了4件套。
现在他都不如这个妮蔻了，妮蔻也4件套了。这妮蔻现在这一波3杀，直接打美了。又要开厂长，厂里面有金身的，金身开一下，但是意识呢没开。这里的话，卢锡安打一套好像效果一般。
别废话了。
这边生姜犀利把对方逼退。 这里死哥直接毒大招 ，Echo 直接被炸死了。卢锡安这2下点的很漂亮，
这一波真的是后补拯救了。
但是这里打了一炮要追，卢锡安一往无前往前冲，
漂亮，
这边败了还要追，拿下一个 double kill， 这边还可以追吗？
有没有人让后？瑞兹这里是没有闪现的，没有 TP 的，
小五只能卖自己了。这一波后补打得很果断，
哇，这一波全靠卢锡安啊，
很有胆识。
这个就是卢锡安最强的一波，他很清楚知道这一点。
你惹了不该惹的人。
Maple 这一波关还不错，哎，这叫一个 lock 没办法过，有闪现，闪过去被赶紧吞回来。刚刚应该是想要留一个闪现，看隔墙能不能塔姆吞。
准备好送死吧！
有 TP 起点，苏宁这波要炸了。这船长下来，
筒子直接炸死，左一的伤害带走鳄鱼，再一个飞行拿掉皇子 ，Knight 入无人之境往前追，闪现左沿途想杀 Sword， 一个 R 技能贴到脸上 ，Triple Kill，Knight 这一波左一杀疯了呀！
这局感觉要炸了，这波打完这局就炸了。
原来你喜欢这么玩吗？均衡，存乎万物之间。
哇！刚才这边 Mystic 直接被围的是一个大招，结尾这个大招已经给到了韩冰了，吐出来之后恐怕要受到这一下爆炸的伤害了。
我们上吧，他们的最后时刻要来临了。收到了。
旁边海南一个闪现进场，5雷轰顶，直接瞬间融化2个人，先砍下一波 Triple Kill，
要利用好暗影。
像我这么帅的，一般都是主角哦。
我打得好快啊！好快，真的好快，好没了。
目标已捕获。
这波可能要直接 rush 了，两边要接大龙团了。
哎呦，哎呦，一被砍到了！我的天哪！哇，这一波
要主抢到大龙啊！而且转头还把 AJ 给收掉了，
全凭技术。 他们要逃命了！
3条线嘛，3条线 IG 的补刀都是领先的。是的。
上路这个大家锋线打的也太细了吧？
要给大了吗？我看一下。哎，塞拉斯给大。
给大了，
这是假的。
都给大了。一个山寨版的，一个正版的。
哎，但是这波盲僧在，看出他的眼睛闪现。哦，这个但是 Q 了，好了，
就被拉断了。
但是手上这边斯拉有队友有猪可以来了，但是这边直接砸死了兹塔。
一魔者王。
哎呦，没有哦，在空中，这波他的跳跃太过分了。
我来看看你有什么本领。
而且还能再打的这个球有点低，完了，中场也要炸了，
敌王绕柱打不出技能，
这个中场也
全部死亡。
趁黑出动。
京东在偷大龙，
哇，这个感觉有机会啊！
下来这是蓝色金球照到了，纷纷进来，他身上有大招，
是酒桶
这边要逼惩戒了，英雄登场下来，惩戒是
皇子拿下来的，
城中，是时候算账了。我已经判决。
酒桶这边很危险，随之这边 Snake 这边5人都在龙坑里。
哇，这样京东做了一整个白工。
威这边单杀到了卡利斯塔。
阿修罗从这个位置来1打3，计划解掉控制以后开始滚3环，先射死了
这个伤害，
再射死了加利奥，他的羊刀是满的伤害，看不
这也太帅了！
黑夜也会怕我。
I met him at a bar, was strumming his guitar. He looked me in the eyes, gave me those butterflies. He's got that special thing because I'm all about him. He makes my knees go weak, got his song on repeat. A sucker for his love, he fits me like a glove. He's my favorite, can't get enough. What would I do without him? I have no clue, have no clue. He's under my skin. What would I do without him? I have no clue, have no clue. He's under my skin. Cali boys got that edge. Those bad boys fighting fights. Cali boys got that. Got that scrub on Sunday face, that mellow and chillin' pace. Oh, when we fight, I cry. He's perfect in my eyes. Like a light, yeah. He shines so bright, yeah. He'd never lie to me. He's loyal as can be. When we fight, oh, he makes me cry. He'll never let me go, 'cause I do too much for him. I clean up all his mess, put on his favorite dress. And after 3 whole months, he still gives me that run. He's my favorite, can't get enough. What would I do without him? I have no clue, have no clue. He's under my skin.
我们来了2个新人，所以我们一开始我们的配合不太好，但我们越打越好了。我的状态的话还行吧，但是我至于挣奶粉钱，我现在做的还远远不够。
That is the most honorable thing I've ever seen here in League of Legends eSport. Good old Daddy Mystic working for his child. Welcome back to the LPL. The father just picked up his first game here in this series, and WE taking on JDG continues in a Game 3 that cannot be underestimated. My name's Jake Sterik. I am joined by Mr. Clement Chu, and Clement, it is honorable to see a father hard at work.
Yeah, who says family was a hindrance to your career? Not for Mystic. It actually propels him to go farther. And we just saw him right there saying he needed knife and chin, which is he needed money to buy his baby formula. So he's got a lot of pressure on his back, and he actually admitted that to raise my family right, I'm not doing enough.
Oh, good.
That's a very touching moment for him.
He did enough in that game, let me tell you. Game number 2, Mystic had a big showing. So did Missing as well. That 2v3. underestimated by JDG.
Oof, that was such a brutal moment coming in from WE's side, and really shows you how much this lane has actually progressed. We were talking about Mystic. He was always a great laner, but this split he's really been taking it to a new high. We saw him plus 30 CSD on average on champions like Kalista,
Wow.
on the Caitlyn. He's been absolutely dominating this lane, and like you were saying, I think missing is also a big part of it. Finally having a stable lane partner helps your trade so much.
It was more than stable, it was dominant, missing, and Mystic, or rather just Mystic picked up MVP. But if you could join them together, you definitely would in that game number 2. Of course, there he is. 10-1 and 3 on Vayne. 32%, and we didn't even get to late game.
And it does seem like this is going to be the highlight matchup between the two teams. Kai'Sa is by far JD Gaming's best champion in terms of win rate. They're currently sitting at 8-2 with the champion, and WE with Mystic is coming out with the counter pick. They're saying, you know what, we're going to run the Vayne every single chance we get. The mobility we get to dodge away from things and then turn it around and just chase the Kai'Sa down is unparalleled in this matchup. That's why Vayne is considered as a bit of a counter pick. She wins the solo, and if you don't finish her off with the initial salvo, then she has that Night Hunter passive to really close the distance.
It was so hard for Flawless to get on top of Mystic. Looking back at that play, the Skarner could just not get the Impale off, the ultimate, onto Mystic, and from there it was over in that bottom lane, much like a lot of lanes here for JDG. We've come into playoffs and we've seen 2 very dominant games right off the bat. Quick games, Clement, but dominant in their own right for each team.
Yeah, the winning team has